These things are eerily similar to us humans.
Well, this is where we're gonna prepare their food and their bed.
And this guy sells about $200,000 worth of them every single year. Thank you.
So from the beginning, we've increased about 40% year over year.
How did he do it? Why mushrooms?
Every day they're growing 50% bigger. So the
No way.
window of harvest is actually pretty small.
How he turned his passion into a profitable business while claiming anyone can do the same.
As we were figuring out how to grow mushrooms, we failed miserably. And this is one piece of advice that any mushroom grower can take. No one person can do it all if you want to be a scaling, growing business. We'd have spent $0 on actual advertising.
If you have a 9-to-5 but want to get into doing this,
Well, there's a lot of people doing that.
Do they
So
really?
you totally could. We sold out everything we grew for the first few years.
I drove to a small city of Walla Walla to discover the answers we all seek. All right, Sundown, you are a Washington State Entrepreneur of the Year. But before we find out how that happened, tell our audience what exactly you do here.
Our primary purpose is to build healthy relationships, and we do that by growing mushrooms, which is a great way to meet people because mushrooms are fun, they're healthy, and they catch people's eye.
Awesome. Did you have like a background in farming?
My background is pretty varied. Farming was kind of sprinkled in on a very low level, small community farms. I got dabbled into aquaponics for a little bit, but by and large, I worked at the Apple stores for 10 years.
Wow.
I worked at UPS for a year and a half, done a variety of other just jobs, you know, that pay the bills.
No farming whatsoever. So why mushrooms out of all the farming choices, especially in Walla Walla, right?
Yeah, so those small experiences I did have really gave me the bug that said that it was important for us to have local sources for our food and to be able to do that year round. So when we looked at the different components, we realized that there wasn't a significant mushroom grower in this region.
Interesting, okay.
And there was some demand. Walla Walla is a tourist industry, so there's some really fine restaurants here, and that's what we had in our pockets, so we started
Nice.
with growing mushrooms.
Tell us exactly where we are though, just in a quick snippet.
Yeah, you came on a really great day, Paul. Today is the opening day of the downtown Walla Walla Farmers Market.
Exciting.
It is mushroom weather, as you can tell by the wind
On
and
and
the
off
rain.
with the rain, yeah.
Yeah, so we play off that. But we have a lot of great vendors here, and some food vendors. It's still pretty early in the farming season, but we have a lot of other crafts and artisans that participate in this market.
Hey, you guys, we just got to the farm. Welcome to Walla Walla. Look at this beautiful hay field. I know Sundown's already in there waiting for us, so. Hello.
Hey, Paul, welcome to Chesed Farms.
Hey, I just saw you 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, welcome back.
It's exciting to be actually at the farm. Talk to us about why you have a sawdust machine.
Sure. Well, this is where we're going to prepare their food and their bed. So you can think of this as a bed and breakfast for alien life forms.
Spoiled mushrooms, they need their
Yes.
food in bed, okay.
Yes, so we have their room and their food. There's a number of ways you can mix the substrate. And we take a bag.
What are you mixing in there too?
Oh yeah, we're mixing oak sawdust in pelletized form and oat pellets. Yeah, so we got our good old unicorn bag there. It's gonna put it on this hopper, step on the pedal.
How much? Oh, you just,
Yeah, one step and everything.
It all just
This
mixed up.
revolutionized our business. Up
What?
until last year, we were
Nice.
mixing the stuff in totes and then measuring it by hand into the bags.
Wow, so we have water, we have everything they need to get going.
Yeah, the 3 ingredients that we're using. It does take a few minutes here for the pellets to absorb the water. And you see they kind of break down. So we have these totes and we'll make 12 in a batch. And in that time, it's ready to be folded.
Okay.
You want to make one?
Sure. So then do we open it up all the way like that?
And just pull it up there. Make sure you hold on to it. This is
Okay.
about 10 pounds of stuff coming. And then wait for the water to drip and we're good. Good job, Paul.
All right. I'm switching
Just go ahead
careers.
and put that right next to that one.
Yeah. Share with us your monthly expenses here at the farm. What
We're
are they-
talking more overhead as opposed
just
to
as a
material
business,
stuff.
yeah.
So in our overhead, we are in a controlled environment. You see, we're in a warehouse. We are leasing this space, so we have our lease. We have utilities, mostly electricity, insurance, about $3,500.
Okay, not bad.
You know, if we include like our software
Yep.
and QuickBooks and those kind of things. So somewhere in that ballpark.
So this is where you spend most of your time, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, yeah.
The long weeks that you put in, this is where it happens?
It's either this or I'm on the road delivering mushrooms to somebody, but even more so here.
Well, I want to go check out, what do you call it, the incubator?
The incubation room.
Incubation room.
Yeah,
and
or the
tell us,
myceli room.
tell us a little bit about that. This is where they kind of hang out, eat, and grow.
The creature spends most of its life as mycelium. It's under our feet everywhere we walk, pretty much.
Interesting.
And that's what we're going to go see. So this will be the underground stage. We've inoculated our bag of substrate with a little bit of grain that has some mycelium on it so that they can then continue to expand and eat and get ready to be mushrooms.
Yeah. Help us understand what in the world is happening in this room, because it's like 81 degrees.
Yeah. So this is where the mushrooms are growing, expanding, eating all their food in their nice prepared room and breakfast board.
Nice.
And as they do that, they're also metabolizing, so they're creating heat in here. This would be the underground phase of the mushroom.
Call that the underground?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they're just hanging out. This is what we typically don't see, but it's happening underneath our feet as we walk around, especially in the forest. Each of these little points was a grain that had mycelium on it, and they're expanding out, and then they're finding each other, and they're becoming one and reconnected. And we leave them in here until that point where they've essentially eaten up all the food that they want. They're starting to sense the scarcity of their food, so they want to send out that next generation. And that's where we'll take them over to our fruiting room, cut open a hole, and let them grow their mushrooms so that they can do the next generation. However, we're going to cut that off and turn them into food for us.
Interesting. It's like this, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I wanted to start a mushroom farm today. I have zero knowledge, zero farming experience. Can you give me a step-by-step plan on what that looks like? And I don't know, there could be a lot, but
yeah,
give us
it is
your
a lot.
version
For
of
our
it.
interest of time today, I can break it down into some three simple phases
Okay.
that will give you an overview. So the first one is you want to understand who's your competition and who's your customer. Where are these mushrooms going to go? And knowing your competition will also help you know what customers are not being served. So after you research your competition and your customer, then you want to get your setup made. So the most important step of the mushroom operation is growing the mushroom. Here we're in this incubation phase. There's actually companies now that focus just on this. So you don't have to have this infrastructure. You can just build your fruiting room, bring these ready to fruit blocks into your fruiting room, fruit them, package them, sell them, and you're done with a lot less overhead going into it. And then third is you got to follow up. So as those things are taking place, you've already talked to your customers, you gotta let them know every step of the way. Get to know they wanna know the farmer, make sure they know who you are, where are they at in the process, things happen, and you just tell them. Chefs know, especially with dealing with local food, that it doesn't always turn out the way you hoped, but just make sure you're following up every step of the way and that you show up with what you say you can do.
Is there anything else to add as far as research? What are some key traits or key aspects that we need to remember about the research?
Well, research is be bold and be proud of what you're going to do. Even though in your early stages, you let them know. So at a restaurant, for instance, you're going to want to read their menu first, right? See what they're serving, go through their website and social media and look for statements that say they value local products. Those are going to be easier customers to connect with. And if they don't say that, keep looking, and you can return to those customers later if you think you can build that relationship. In the grocery stores, if that's the market you want to go after, go talk to that produce manager. And if you just happen to have a nice community and neighborhood that you're involved in and known, you could just do some direct sales and then offer some online sales and possibly a subscription and just deliver in your neighborhood. Make it simple.
Okay. So how much do you typically sell at a market like this?
So up until the end of last year, we sold out everything we grew for the first few years.
Wait, you brought everything from the farm?
Everything from the farm, which at, the peaks towards those ends was probably about 20 to 30 pounds. Nowadays, we have more mushrooms. In fact, we're going into more farmers markets. 2 today, it'll be 2 on Fridays.
Okay.
So Walla Walla is a great community because it's got a lot of foodies. So our goal right now is to average about $1,000 per market.
Wow.
For this market. Other markets that are a little smaller communities that may not have a rich food community, we're shooting for like 300 to 500, which is a decent amount.
Right, but this isn't the only way you sell mushrooms, by the way. I want to make that clear. Okay.
Yeah.
This is just an opportunity in spring. You get out, you meet with the community.
6 months of the year.
Okay.
This is what we're doing Fridays and Saturdays.
Nice. I want to come back to the fact that you got into this with absolutely no experience in farming. So where did you learn from as far as your information that you got?
Primarily, it was the YouTube. So
Here comes YouTube again.
Yeah,
okay.
YouTube University, right?
Yeah. Free. Doesn't cost too
free.
much.
You can watch it and listen to it while I'm doing other things.
Okay.
You can go back to it and review it, and so.
Before I ask you about specifically what YouTubers, because I'm interested to find out.
Yeah.
But what is the startup cost, though, Sundown? Like, if I wanted to get into the same industry, how much does it cost? Do I need to have a lot of money?
Everything depends, right? That's what I learned in accounting class. Everything depends. But our startup, we had a garage, had a 3-car garage. So we converted one of those carports into our mushroom farm with $5,000. And we sought out recycled materials that we could get and things like that. For ours, we overdid the construction for sure. So we built actual walls, insulated them, mini split systems to control the climates.
You realize you don't need that, is what you're saying?
For that size of space, they would have what's called a Martha tent, named after Martha Stewart.
I have to check that out.
And it's just a pretty simple grow tent with a much less complicated humidification and temperature system that would have fit nicely in our space, but go big or go home.
Where are we going next? Tell us about it. Walla Walla Factory?
Pasta Factory.
Yeah, so what's the relationship there?
So the Walla Walla Pasta Factory is right here on Main Street, just 2 blocks from where we're at right now.
Okay.
And they were our very first Walla Walla restaurant customer.
All right, here they are, Walla Walla Pasta Factory.
That's the spot.
So cool. I know one of the questions that we love asking is the profit margins revenue question. So if you're willing to share, can you walk us through your revenue as it is today?
So from the beginning, we've increased about 40% year over year, and last year we just shy of 200,000. This year, because we also scaled back some of those additional products we're doing, and I'm working on being more conservative in my forecasting, I'm shooting to break 250,000.
Okay. I'm curious, I want to ask you guys, how much of the 200,000 that they made last year do you think Sundown actually gets to keep? Answer below: A, 20 to 30%, B, 30 to 60%, or C, 60 to 80%. We'd love to hear from you. All right, blitz time with Sundown. You ready?
Ready.
All right, rapid answer. How many times can you harvest from the same block?
Commercially, 1 is really all you want to go for, but a block can be harvested up to 3 times.
Got it. Any tips for negotiating with retailers?
If you're small and starting out, we guaranteed our product. So we kept the inventory low so that we wouldn't have to replace product. And on the couple times where we did, we replaced the product.
Okay. Is mushroom farming the hardest type of farming?
I don't think so. I couldn't tell you what the hardest form of farming is.
That's a good point. Where did you get your spores? Mycelium to get started?
Yes,
Did I
so
read that
we
right?
primarily get our mycelium from the
Mycelium.
Mycelium Emporium. We do some in-house and also the Mossy Creek mushrooms.
Gotcha. Record number of mushrooms you've harvested in a year?
Last year we hit somewhere around 3.5 tons of mushrooms.
Whoa. Okay. If you weren't a farmer, what would you be doing instead?
I'd be farming.
Be farming? How has running this business changed you personally?
It's changed me personally in just becoming who I'm meant to be.
Running a small business like Sundown's can sometimes feel like a juggling act. Bills to settle, vendors to pay, contractors to invoice. It can all be a lot, especially if you suck at juggling. But don't worry, because Melio is here to revolutionize your payment processes. Melio offers a seamless online payment platform designed to simplify your life as a small business owner. With Melio, Sundown has the freedom to choose the payment method he wants, while ensuring vendors still get paid the way they prefer, all without the hassle of signing up. So whether it's a traditional check or online payment, Melio's got you covered. They even give the flexibility to pay with a credit card, boosting your cash flow and allowing you to reap the rewards from credit card providers. And seamless integration with QuickBooks and Xero means automatically updating your books just got easier. Melio is all about convenience. It's why their user-friendly online platform and mobile app allow you to instantly settle transactions from wherever you are. Leave the juggling to the pros. Click the link below to experience the difference Melio can make today. As far as revenue, how much is it from wholesaling versus directly to consumer?
Yeah, that's a good question because we do have a diversified market going on, and it's been pretty consistent just around that 50% mark.
Really?
Yeah, give or take,
50-50.
direct to consumer versus wholesale. The farmer's market being a big part of that direct to consumer component.
All right, when you first got started, how did you build the relationships with restaurants, with other sellers or buyers? Like, what was your pitch? Or maybe you don't need a pitch because everybody wants mushrooms.
Well, that definitely helped, and I'm a bold person when it comes to stuff like this, so it's pretty much walking in and finding out who the decision maker is, and then asking them if they like mushrooms, if they use mushrooms, are their customers looking for mushrooms? So with the restaurants, I'm looking to talk to the chef. If it's a bigger restaurant, I'll find a manager, but the chefs are typically the ones to connect with. And with the restaurant in specific, I'll look at their menus and try to see, I noticed you had this dish on your menu. This is a place where this particular mushroom would do really well, or this would be a mushroom that could expand a new dish for your menu. So figuring out how it fits into their current offerings and how to expand their offerings.
Yep.
And then in the grocery stores, it's the produce manager.
But it's all face-to-face, essentially.
That is, yes, that is the key.
Well, I am dying to try one of the dishes. I heard that they're making something for us with the mushrooms.
Yeah,
that
Chef
you've
Kari's
grown.
in there right now putting something together.
Dude, let's go. Let's go check it out.
Okay.
All right. Sweet. Well, it's good we get like inside access before everything opens up, right?
Yeah.
I see this menu. What do we got here as far as
So we're
Chesed Farms?
right on the top of the menu, the wild mushroom bruschetta.
Yeah.
Using our oyster mushrooms.
That's awesome. Cool.
But today we're gonna try out that bruschetta. So this is a crostini with oyster mushrooms on it, a little bit of the shiitakes as well, some caramelized onions. This is a local bread from Wheatland Bakery that's been toasted, and then we have olive oil and balsam vinaigrette from another local company.
All right, well, dig in. I'll do it with you.
Let's do it. My favorite part.
Wow, that's freaking good. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you first were starting out?
Yeah, well,
think?
our history is unique in that we started the week that the COVID shutdown happened.
No way. You're one of those businesses.
Yeah, we filed on March 15th, and then 4 days later, it was the shutdown. We were already building, and as we were figuring out how to grow mushrooms, we failed miserably a number of times in trying to figure out how we were going to start the growth process, and that led to leaning more on those folks that are already doing it. We tried to rewrite the script.
Reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. So that was definitely challenging and slowed us down. And then COVID made a big impact because the farmers market shut down. There weren't any farmers markets to start with. Luckily, I have some digital experience and websites and can move pretty quickly. So we just fired up a website and we got into the newspaper as a business starting up in COVID. So that was the story. And we were delivering people on bicycle because no one was on the road and we're in a small town, and we sold out. So the challenge was the external factors that you don't think about.
Yeah, we are at the harvesting area of the farm, right? This is absolutely amazing. Can you give us a quick breakdown on what kind of mushrooms we're looking at here? They're all beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, so these are some rock stars that we've got. The lion's mane up front.
Wow.
Little fuzzy hairs. People really enjoy that one. The snow oyster, which this is something that started here at this farm.
Really?
It's not the only white oyster mushroom out there, but we had a blue oyster mushroom. Then the batch spit out a couple white ones. And so we took the tissue culture and got it into liquid, and were able to cultivate it. This is a pearl oyster mushroom, which has just been a monster. It's a new one for us as well.
Huge.
The chestnut mushroom, which is my personal favorite. Rich umami flavor, nutty twist to it, super tender caps.
How would you eat this?
So
give us a recipe recommendation by the expert.
Yeah, so one of my favorites is it mimics crab and lobster meat, and my wife's allergic to shellfish. I love clam chowder. So this, we shred it up and we can mix it into a chowder recipe, and I get the best of both worlds. I get my chowder and I get to keep my wife.
That is a good combination.
Yeah.
Guys, we want to hear what you think as far as recipes. Comment below, out of all these mushrooms you're seeing here, what's the best way to prepare it? Love to hear your thoughts and comments. Tell us how we know that they're ready to harvest. Obviously, I would think, well, there's no rocket science to it. They're ready. Take them off. Give me an elaborated version of how do we know?
It's an important question because they grow so fast. Every day they're growing 50% bigger. So the window of harvest is actually pretty small. For the chestnuts, for instance, it's within like 6 to 8 hours. If we go a little bit past that, they're gonna be less than prime. And of course, we're a premium brand, so we want the best
flavor
mushroom.
does change if you don't harvest it in a particular time?
Yeah, because they start to transform more into giving off spores.
And
so even the material, the flesh of the cap, changes into gills and spores.
Amazing.
So you have less cap flesh.
Wow.
So we like them when they're nice and curved. We still have a richer brown color. They'll lighten up in color as well. The blues is a tricky one. They start off rich blue, like marine blue, and as they mature, they fade off almost into silver. So you want to catch them right when they're still blue, but big enough that we're getting the yield we want. And one way to tell is the curve. So we like a little bit of curve left on the oyster mushroom there. And then it's also the touch.
So the firmness?
Yeah, so they're not totally firm. They have a little bit of rubbery bounce give to them.
They're such a beautiful little creation.
Yeah. Lion's mane, we're looking for some defined icicles or hairs on there. You can let them grow really long, but we like to say that we're mycoculturists, right? Like a horticulturist takes care of plants.
Yeah.
So we take care of mushrooms. I'm not a mycologist, I'm not a scientist. So don't ask me the Latin names.
Okay.
But essentially the
Yeah.
oyster mushroom is a classification where they are really closely related.
Well, I'm excited to harvest this with you and learn
Sweet.
a little bit. Before we do that though, how long did it take for you to make enough mushrooms out of your home garage to then branch out and lease and get a bigger space?
Well, I'm a fast talker, so we probably should have grown more. But we were able to work with another locally focused lender that bridges the gap between the bank and startup.
So you brought them up because they helped you branch out of your
Yeah, so they gave us the financing to get into this place.
I see, okay.
But we were able to demonstrate, so in the garage, we were able to demonstrate that we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
We had some clientele in our sales. We were, like I said, we didn't have any losses. So everything we grew, we sold.
How long did it take you to prove that concept? How
How
long were you in the garage?
6 months.
That's it?
Yeah, so we started talking to Craft 6 months in, and then we had the lease on this place 2 months later.
Let's talk advertising, how much you spend, what sources, what has the best ROI, and so forth.
I'm glad you're asking this question, because this is one of those things I'm pretty proud of, that we have spent $0 on actual advertising in 4+ years. We got Instagram and Facebook, and then we got an email newsletter, and our website has a lot of information on that. And then it's the face-to-face. So farmers market is not just a sales avenue, but it's also a teaching and relationship building opportunity.
For sure. Yeah.
And then we also do some special events. So we've done some, we call them master classes at wineries and restaurants, where we're pairing mushroom heavy dishes. And in the case of a winery, we're gonna pair that with a wine. And then through that meal, we're talking about the farm, and I'm talking about mushrooms and their benefits and how we do it. And so people get a real immersive experience.
Yeah, sounds like a fun experience, for sure.
Full of fun guys.
Yeah. Share with us the experience of being on local TV. What did that do to your business? How did you secure those spots and so forth?
Yeah, well, I have no idea how we secured those spots, just like I have no idea how I landed on your YouTube channel today.
Fresh starts, it's a new year, and I'm here with Sundown Hazen at
Chesed Farms.
So, if you've kind of wondered what's going on in Walla Walla, we're growing mushrooms thanks to Sundown at Chesed Farms.
So we have a public station here called the Blue Mountain Television, and they reached out to us and wanted to do more segments about local businesses and local organizations. They see our mushrooms at their local grocery store, so I imagine that helped connect it. Then we also had a local news reporter from the Tri-Cities here who reached out to us in last December. He wanted to do a piece. His producer said, well, we've already done a mushroom farm before. So he went back to the website and noticed that we were selling our soil substrate. And so he said, why don't we do that in the spring? And so he followed up a month or so ago, and we did a piece with the wheat farmer who's using our substrate to turn that into a fertilizer for the wheat fields out here.
What did that do to your business? Do you see an uptick, or this is just another way to, build brand awareness, and that's all it did?
Brand awareness would be, I think, a big part of it. It still surprises me. We're a town of 44,000 people, which
not a lot.
It is a lot, but it's also not a lot.
Yeah.
But it's, in perspective, still run into people all the time. Like, we had no idea that there was a mushroom grower in our community.
Okay.
So even with the newspapers and the TV stuff, like, there's still room to grow and raise awareness. That's not always front of mind for me, right? I'm in it every day, so I just assume, like, of course everybody knows we're growing mushrooms. We're everywhere.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges of running a mushroom farm?
Yeah, I have a phrase I say hashtag farm life. In our case, machines break down, contamination happens.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well,
just toss everything and start over?
In some cases, yeah. Maybe not everything, but it might be an entire batch. It just gets tossed out. We have codes so that we know every step of the way where this mushroom came from the original liquid culture, so I can scan
Give me
that.
an example, yeah.
Yeah, so we have the QR code there.
Gotcha.
And,
PO04, so April 22nd probably?
That's when this bag was made, it was April 22nd, but if we scan the QR code, you'll see a whole string of letters and numbers that let me know each individual grain bag, grain jar, and which original liquid source that it came from.
What software are you using to track it this way?
We're doing some Google Sheet stuff, and there's a couple software platforms that are under development, and we're on some beta stuff so I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
But right now it's simply, we just do that, we enter it into a Google form, and keep track of stuff that way.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Guys, if farming is interesting to you, but just don't want to be into mushrooms, we're going to be interviewing an oyster farm very soon. I can't give you an exact release date, but make sure to subscribe and like so that you don't miss it. If you have a 9 to 5 but want to get into doing this, Sundown, how would you approach it?
Well, there's a lot of people doing that.
Do they
so
really?
You totally could, yeah. And I would start with the fruiting stage. So make sure you have a tent. Some people do it as small as boxes that they build that you can stick a ready to fruit block in there and it'll grow the mushroom.
So if you have an apartment or a home or whatever, that's where you start, right?
You could.
You need to go lease anything?
No, there's lots of companies you can find all over the country that will ship you ready to fruit blocks. In fact, you can probably find them at some stores these days. I heard someone bought one at Walmart.
Oh, wow. I never had to look for one. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, so
It's basically this block that you're buying?
Yep. Yeah, before obviously cutting it open here, but it's the final stage. It just needs to be cut open and put into an environment where it can be allowed to grow. And then you have a viable product that you can either enjoy for yourself or bring to the market.
Well, then that leads me to the next question. That is, how do we determine price on the mushroom? One is more expensive, the other is less expensive. How does that come about?
Yeah.
Like, I would imagine that would be the priciest, right? The lion's mane?
Yep, lion's mane and the chestnuts are in one category, and then our oyster mushrooms are in our other category.
Why is that? Is it just the time that it takes to grow? Because material-wise, they're all eating the same stuff.
Yeah, but it's time. So I like to say they got to pay their rent, right?
That's a good one.
They got to pay their rent.
This guy has the highest rent.
Yeah, and so they're like 6 weeks that they're spending from start to finish, and then the oyster mushrooms are 3 weeks. It's how many times you can turn over that shelf.
That is cool.
So how many more products can I get? And so since we're getting more, and they grow faster, we can lower the price.
So if I want to start a mushroom company, maybe focus on the ones that grow faster, right? Because I can sell more.
That is.
Would that be a logical
decision? We got to check out your competition again. Start step one. Check out your competition. What's not being produced? What are people asking for that you can fill? Because if you have a flood of oyster mushrooms in your market, why grow more oyster mushrooms?
Gotcha. Okay. All right, let's talk about what I think everybody's waiting to hear from you, and that is setting up, or phase 2 of setting up a mushroom farm, and that is just setting up the operation physically, right?
Yeah.
What's important? What are some equipment that we can't live without? Anything else you want to highlight?
So at this stage, I would recommend that you start with just fruiting the mushroom. Can you grow a mushroom? So if you focus on the fruiting component of all the process, that's a lot less setup that you're gonna need and a lot less technical experience that you're gonna need. But it's the most important step of the whole process because that's the mushroom. So set up your fruiting room or fruiting tent. Make sure you have a nice clean area to package and harvest, and a place to store those mushrooms because you want to keep them cool.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things. You got a fruiting room, place to package and harvest, and a place to store your mushrooms, and you can be in the mushroom business because there's lots of other businesses that can support you in those earlier steps.
So it doesn't sound like you need a lot of equipment necessarily.
No, we started to try to do everything from start to finish. In hindsight, that would have been the thing that I would also maybe do different, is just focus on that fruiting stage, which is a lot of fun, a lot less equipment needed, and then that's the most important part of the sales in my opinion, because I like to eat and I like to talk to people. So
yeah. Speaking of eating, this bread looks amazing, by the way.
Yeah, this bakery, All Things Artisan, is not just a bakery. They also have freeze dryers. So they are freeze drying and powdering and packaging our mushrooms to give us that value-added product that we are able to offer.
Okay, sweet. All right, before we talk about phase 3 of starting a mushroom company, let's talk YouTube briefly. Like, with what you know today, a lot of it came from YouTube. Where did you learn from? Who specifically? And anything else you want to highlight?
So still to this day, we're going back to those YouTube channels that we've found resourceful. Mossy Creek is one. Andrew's a lot of fun to watch. Just a great character, and he's doing good work. And so with the earlier stages of liquid culture and getting the genetics and how we want to maintain that library, that's our go-to there. Mike from Southwest Mushrooms, I like to think of him, I tell people he's the Bob Ross of mushrooms.
Interesting.
And I hope he sees this because I didn't mean that in the most endearing way. He's just so soft-spoken. He's got this beautiful afro, and he's also really detailed, and his whole operation shares a ton of stuff, but he's got a number of videos that we keep going back to check that out.
Now, you've had time a little bit to explore the UpFlip Academy, right? What do you think about it?
Yeah, when I got signed in and got my account set up, I was really surprised and eager to see what was available there. The first thing is I got a recommendation that I should check out the Google Ads module. And being as we've never spent anything on marketing, but we're at a scaling point, and do start thinking about like, well, what is going to be the way to connect with that larger market that we can't and haven't been successful at connecting with. So I'm going to watch that one first.
Perfect.
And then the ability to network with other entrepreneurs to just talk about the ways to run business as opposed to growing mushrooms is something I'm also looking to have some additional resources on.
Sweet. Well, I'm excited for you to learn from there. And by the way, guys, if you're looking to learn from world-class entrepreneurs or connect with awesome, amazing, successful business owners like Sundown, then you cannot miss the UpFlip Academy. We'll make sure we leave the link below. You mentioned starting this business with a partner. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so after Jonathan and I got to know each other at church, I was remembering an experience I had back in California, which I helped start a nonprofit called Schoolgrown. We were building an 1,800 square foot greenhouse with aquaponic systems in it for schools. And so I thought, well, that's a way to grow year round. What can we do to commercialize that, make it on a commercial scale here with mushrooms and microgreens and a retail space? And one of the only people I really knew in the community with some agricultural experience was Jonathan. He happened to have been looking for work, so I said, hey, why don't you come help me figure this out? And so we started penciling out the
really
design and the business plan, and then the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah. How much mushrooms on a daily basis do you discard because of spoilage?
Well, up until this year, we've discarded virtually none, because we've been able to sell as we grow and have always outsold than we've grown, right?
Okay,
so
that's a good thing.
Yeah, we've had a demand problem, not a supply. Well, that's changed as we've gotten really good at scaling into this space. So now we do have some waste. One is we've started freeze drying. So we have the freeze-dried products, powdered and pieces, and those have a 5-year shelf life.
Wow.
So that helps build inventory and
way to
extend
pivot,
that out. Yeah. We also donate to soup kitchens. So there's a couple different soup kitchens in town that will donate those before they're spoiled, mushrooms that we didn't sell. And then my favorite though, which I discovered last year, and this is one piece of advice that any mushroom grower can take, and they should start right off the bat, is people who love mushrooms don't care what they look like. So we have a high standard, and we want them all, we want them to be beautiful and perfect, and that's our thing. And on the shelf they have to be, because people are going to pull them off that way. But at the farmers market and even online sales now, we bag them up and they'll be ugly. They're like probably a week old at least. So they totally look shriveled up, and we just throw them in mixed bags, half pounds or full pounds. We label them ugly and tasty, and they're essentially half off of our regular retail price.
Nice, that's
and people
a good idea.
gobble them up. They're sold out within an hour of every farmer's market.
The ones that just don't look so clean and perfect is what goes into the ugly bag?
Yeah. But the customer told it as soon as I did it. They're like, oh, this is great. I'm just going to chop it up anyways and throw it in the soup. And I'm like, why didn't I do this 3 years ago?
How'd you come up with it? Just
I was actually a chef. Who was doing a pizza thing, so he wanted to use our mushrooms, wanted to source locally, but was under a budget. And he said, well, hey, do you have seconds? Which is another term that people use. And I was like, oh, actually we do. So started selling him seconds, have a couple other restaurants that have taken advantage of that as well. But at the farmer's market, it's that there's something about this brown paper bag sitting on the table with this big sticker printed on it that says ugly and tasty.
That's what gets people
it pulls people in. They're like, it's funny, it's like, it's curious, they can't tell, they have to come to the table to see it. So
if you love mushrooms, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The uglier the better. What are some of your favorite mushrooms and the dishes? Can you give us a little inside look?
Yeah, my top right now is the chestnut mushroom.
Why?
As far as what we grow, it's both for texture and flavor, and the texture is just so good. It holds up well in casseroles and chili and heavy dishes.
Okay.
But it's still super tender to bite into. Yeah. The best way though, because it has such a good flavor, is to saute it up with a little bit of thyme and butter, and then put it on some avocado toast with a little bit of diced tomato. That way it showcases the mushroom itself, and then you get those other textures and to complement it.
Okay, I got a quick challenge for you. One of my camera guys does not like mushrooms very much. If you had 30 seconds to convince him or her, and you guys watching, that mushrooms should be in their diet, what would you say?
I would say you should try them, because they'll grow on you.
So try it, they'll grow on you. Taking into account everything you've seen, everything you know, what qualities do you think a successful farming entrepreneur should have?
I'd say 3 things. So patience being the first one, stamina the second one, and persistence.
Can you elaborate on one of them?
Yeah, so patience, so that you slow down and realize that all the crises aren't necessarily crises.
Stepping stones.
And you're working with people, right? So being patient with each person. And then stamina, because it is hard work. I move one of these 10-pound blocks 600 times a day. So it's a ton of material. It's my workout. I don't need a gym membership.
Seriously.
It justifies those 80 hours.
Yep.
So I'm moving every day. It's a workout. And then the persistence, because it takes time to get to the final product. So you gotta stick through it and then do it again.
Yeah, nothing's overnight. Knowing everything you know about the mushroom growing business, would you do anything different? Like, what are some components about the business, about the industry that you see that you're like, man, I wish that could be different? Like,
well, I would say I didn't appreciate what can be done with mushrooms.
You didn't appreciate?
I didn't fully appreciate it. So talk about diversification is one way to grow your business, right? What are the right ways to add on additional items that complement each other? So originally I was thinking we're gonna add on tomatoes and herbs
Oh, wow.
and microgreens and these, other vegetable products that make sense at a farmer's market table. As we've grown, we're in year 5 now, the mushrooms itself, so we've gotten into dehydrated products of mushrooms, freeze-dried products, there's nutritional options, supplements. We use the spent substrate blocks as a soil amendment. So there's value-added products throughout our process line that I wish I would have focused on for our diversification to add value rather than trying to add additional product lines.
Like a tomatoes.
Right, like something totally different.
Yeah.
So that's I think the
interesting.
biggest thing that I would shift if I could go talk to myself 2 or 3 years ago.
So what are these little dudes doing?
So this is the grain, so actually local wheat grain out in those fields, and then we've inoculated it from our liquid culture. So this is one creature of mycelium that's a specific species. Yeah.
When you say
I
creature, it's like
I
it's
guess.
gonna jump out at you,
It feels like it when you get to live with them all the time. But I guess organism is a more common word, but I keep saying creature.
My little baby.
Yeah, you gotta take care of them. So this is one creature. What we'll do is we'll shake this up and it breaks them all into pieces.
Interesting.
And then each little grain has its own autonomous individual creature. Yeah, and then we sprinkle those
mind-boggling.
into those bags of substrate. So it just gets expanded. This little guy right here will make 60 bags of substrate.
Oh, wow.
Which turns into potentially 120 pounds of mushrooms.
Let's talk profit margins briefly. What are your profit margins?
So our profit
Roughly.
margins, gross to net, we're at like 50, 60 to 30%.
Okay.
So on the bigger end is our gross margin per block, and then once everything's all settled out, we land at about 30%.
In the 30s. Okay, guys, earlier on I asked Sundown what his profit margins are. I asked you guys A, B, or C. Did you get it right? Comment below. Every entrepreneur that we talk to always mentions systems. Talk about systems in your business and how they've helped you succeed, and give us an example of one.
Yeah, so there's obviously a number of different systems in communication and electronics and whatnot and the way we grow, but I think the best one is actually this little laminated piece of paper right
And
here.
the simplest it looks like, right?
So every station has a sheet like this, which gives us what is the purpose of this work, what do you need to do this work at this station, and some of them break down each step that you're doing. This is the packaging, so there's...
This is once you've
this is
harvested,
one.
right?
Yeah, so this
Okay.
is what all the stuff you need to package, and then when you're done with that work, what do you need to do to clean up and finish the work? You always got to do the last step, which is cleaning up.
Right, because if you didn't have this, then either you have to be here all the time,
Yeah.
or people just don't know what the heck they're doing.
No. And this has been built by teaching people that have come in. So all of those, every time I train another employee, I learn what I don't know and
Right.
like how they see it. And so it
Yep.
critiques the process. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to explain that. For example, our newest employee, who's fantastic, she's super fast, and she's moving and she's taking these things on, but she's so fast, I gotta make sure I tell her all the details. And one of them was our trays that we harvest into need to stack. And so I look over, and she's moving these mushrooms, we're moving. I look over and the tray's just mounted. I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you that part.
Missed a step or two,
Yeah,
yeah.
make sure we can stack these up.
We're getting to the end of our interview, so let's talk phase 3 and elaborate on that and the importance of it.
Yeah, so I'd like to say phase 3 is that communication with your customer primarily. So every step of the way. With the mushrooms, I can tell roughly in a week, because they're starting to pin, that I think I'm gonna have this many pounds. So I can do that order, but I need to touch base with you in 4 days, because then I'll see if they're actually growing or if some of them had problems.
Yeah.
And so I can adjust, and then letting them know when you're gonna be there. Ask a lot of questions too. What works best for them that you're willing to work within. But any way that the customer can know better where they stand with you and who you are.
So you also have a subscription program on selling, or for me to buy mushrooms. How
Yeah.
effective has that been? Can you walk us through the process?
It ended up being a really important part when we began.
I
So
see.
not having a lot of mushrooms, we were in the single digits of pounds per week, and not knowing exactly what we were gonna get. So what we did is we started a subscription where you can get a half pound or a full pound mix. And then that way it was always something a little different, so it's fun for the customer. They get to try new things, and we could use whatever we had available. So we've had customers, almost a dozen customers that have been subscribers since the beginning. So 4 years of subscriptions. And we've had people that come and go, and it's been good up to this point. It's been a very important part of our business because we know the revenue's coming in, and we have a way to get our mushrooms out. And it gets us on the road. So that was another important
subscription
part. The
does?
subscription.
How so?
So, because we know we're gonna go on the road, so we open up other deliveries. So the subscription essentially pays for getting on the road, and every additional order that we do then becomes more profitable because we're paying less to deliver all of them overall.
What about like you selling tea and some other products?
Yeah, we like to collaborate.
Just to collaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so at the farmer's market, we have Hummingbird Tea, who's one of our neighbors there, and they do a lot of herbal teas. And then they started learning about the lion's mane, and we started doing the lion's mane powder, so they created a lion's mane matcha.
Wow, okay, that's cool.
And for a long time, we were adding a lot of other products onto our website, trying to, again, be the grocery store. And we had all those other products to sell as well. We still keep those because they're shelf stable and they'll drop ship essentially. If we get an order in, we drive down the road and we get it and we can ship it.
Makes sense.
We cut out the fresh stuff and keep the shelf stable stuff.
Yep. Enjoyed this episode and want to get into farming? Well, make sure to check out episode 128 with a chicken farm that started in the backyard. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.